fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Your kids are listening to every single word you say. They're listening when you argue. They're listening when you love. They're listening when you get into fights. They're listening how you talk about coworkers and bosses and friends. They're literally taking every cue from you. And the big question is, based on what's coming out of your mouth, are you setting them up for success or are you setting them up for failure? Hey, everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again. Salt Strong Unchurched. I'm talking a little bit quiet, ironically, because my kids are still asleep. It's early here, 5 a.m. And I just wanted to share this with you because a few things have come up recently with our own kids where, something came out of their mouth. One, somewhat inappropriate. And another one was kind of cute where he accused my wife of not praying to God, to some other God. Really cute story. And then another one where a young man who his dream job was working at Salt Strong. We liked him. I thought it was going to be a perfect fit, and we had to can him all because of something that came out of his mouth that could have been prevented, and it was all because I'm assuming from some parental influence and maybe some friend influence of something that was come out of his mouth, and so much of this is kind of started. And some of these cues are happening at this young age. I look at my kids, especially like around the dinner table. My wife and I are having conversations, sometimes with them, sometimes with not, where we're having more of an adult conversation about life or work. And I can just glance over them, thinking they would be bored to death and just have their face in their food, and instead, like, they're so intent, they're listening every word. They're looking at our reactions. I mean, think about these kids. I know, like my 4-year-old son, every day I want to be big and strong, like Daddy. It's a good way for him, for us to get him to eat his vegetables. I mean, these kids want to be us until obviously they get into their teens and late teens. But growing up, this is the most influential time. Even from, a 1-year-old, they're taking cues on how we're saying things. At 2-year-olds, they're watching how we speak and how we put words together, and they're getting their first phrases. I mean, they're emulating us every single step of the way. And, there's good and bad with this, right? My wife and I, we had a thing that we would say, instead of saying yes to something that we were excited about. So if someone said, hey, you want to go to Costa Rica? Instead of saying yes, it was from a movie, we would say, hells yeah. Now, not the most inappropriate thing. It's borderline curse word, if you will, or inappropriate. But, for a 4-year-old saying that at school, whole different ballgame, right? When all of a sudden 4-year-olds are saying that. And yet that's the kind of stuff these kids pick up. My grandfather used to call us as grandkids knuckleheads. It's something that stuck with me. I remember, being way under 8 years old and hearing that and thinking it was funny. And he was explaining to me what that was. He was in the military. And I say that around my house all the time. And all 3 of my kids, I got a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old, or 6-year-old, 9-year-old. And all 3 of them say knucklehead just because of me. I mean, they're listening to every single word that we say. And here's where this can get really, really, really powerful. We all have arguments. We all have fights, especially with our spouses. And I'm intently watching how they're looking at us when that happens. And that usually for us, at least shuts down fights pretty quickly around them because they're looking at everything. They're looking at every cue. They're looking to see how we react, what comes out of our mouths. And if all of a sudden you're sitting there yelling and cursing and stomping around and throwing stuff in front of your kids, guess what they're most likely going to do when they have their next hissy fit or when they grow up and have a relationship with someone or get married? I'm telling you, this is the chance where we can set them up for success or for failure. And so I'm just right now so cognizant of this, and I am just trying to everything that comes out of my mouth, how I treat people, what I say about people behind their back, not in front of their face, but behind their back, to all just be super positive and super loving. I mean, but especially that argument part. And especially times when things are tough. I mean, that's the only way they're going to learn how they're supposed to react is usually from watching other people. This is not something you just born with and wake up and understand how to have an argument with someone or how to handle conflict. It's usually coming from some experience they had as a kid where they watched someone they looked up to, like their parents, and then they go and emulate them. So the cute little story I want to share with you. So we've done a bad job, really over the past, I don't know, really since COVID, to be honest with you, of going to church. We've gone to church, but it's been very, very sporadic. And more often than not, we just watch church at home. And so the biblical community side of things for us has been kind of low. But the good news is, we've been pouring it into our kids at home. And one of the things that we do is prayer every single night. All three of our kids, get a prayer, sometimes from both of us, sometimes just from one of us. And for, I don't know, a couple months here, just because the girls have their own thing that mom loves to do with them, that my wife really, really loves doing, like piano. My wife is an amazing, or used to be, she's still great, but it used to be amazing on the piano and still loves that. So she and Savannah do piano lessons together at night. And then she does a little bit of reading and hanging out with Shauna. And I'm usually in there with Jackson. We're goofing around and reading books. And so I've been saying a prayer to Jackson every single night. And I start every single prayer off. I don't know why, but with him, it was always, "Dear God." And I said just like that in those words, "Dear God, please bless Jackson, give him strength and courage." But every single one of my prayers started with "Dear God." So I'm doing this for a couple months. And we flip-flopped recently where Savannah was like crying. She really wanted daddy. And so I go in there and I'm putting Savannah down and saying a prayer to her. And my wife is doing Jackson's prayer. And so, kids are in bed. I'm in my office just kind of catching up on some stuff, getting ready for the next day. It's like 9 something at night, maybe 9:30. He should have been asleep. And all of a sudden I hear my door kind of creaking open behind me, and I look around, and it's little Jackson. He's got little tears in his eyes, and you could tell he's upset. I assumed he had a bad dream. I was like, "Man, you all right, little buddy?" And he just walks up to me, doesn't say a word, and he's just little pout on his face and a little bit of tears. And he said, "Mommy said prayer to different God," and and I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, mommy said prayer to different God." It's to the point he can't sleep over something mom said to him, something that came out of her mouth. So I'm now confused. I'm like, what does my wife tell these kids? Is she talking about Satan or something? Like, because I can't figure this out. He's crying and he's like, "Yeah, mommy said prayer to different God, someone else, not God." He kept saying, "Not God, not God." It was not God. And I'm like, what is going on here? And so I'm about to get her, and I was like, well, like what? Who was she praying to? Because I knew she was praying. It's like, who was it? And he just looks up at me and says, "Lord." She's prays to the Lord. And I'm talking about, you should have seen me smile. I mean, it was just the cutest thing ever. And it also opened up in a great discussion with, a 4-year-old about God and Lord and Jesus and Father. And, just like, dad could be dad or daddy or Daddy Joe. And so it was a great conversation. But that hit me so hard. I went down and, told Lauren after we tucked him back into bed that, wow, I mean, and I'll be honest with you, Jackson's been one of the toughest ones where he's like, he's almost trying to make it into a fun night. And, why we're doing the prayer, he's like, almost wants to wrestle with you more than he wants to listen to a prayer. But it hit me so hard because he was the one I would have sworn was not paying any attention to what I'm saying in that prayer. But I just wanted to keep praying over him and having him being part of it. Where Savannah's like into it and she's really listening intently and nodding her head every single prayer. Jackson's rolling over and playing with his monkey, doing the opposite of what you would want a kid to do during prayer. But that dude was listening to every single word. to the point he was crying about it when mom said a different word and used a different word. It blew me away. And it was such a great reminder that these kids do listen to every single thing that we say, both the good, that was a good story, and bad when something comes out of our mouths that's maybe a little bit inappropriate, or maybe when we scream and yell, or what kind of words come out of our mouth if things drop on our toe, etc. And that's a big reason that we've eliminated cursing. I mean, in a given year, you might hear one curse word in our house, and that's if something really, really devastating happens, like in terms of pain inflicted, and it's not the worst word in the world, but it's a borderline curse word. I've just wanted to eliminate it from my life, and I know a lot of people might disagree with that, but I've yet to see where it really adds value in a conversation. It certainly is not going to help our kids out if they're going into life as a young person cursing. And let me just give you a good example. So we had a job opening a little while ago, and it was, I won't tell you the whole story of who the person was, obviously, but this young man, certainly in his 20s, he was actually a perfect fit. I mean, everything was lining up. We're super excited. We're like, all right, this is it. And guess what we do? And just so you know, we're not the only people doing this. Every company does this now. We go look him up on Facebook and on Instagram to see if he's got an account there, just to see what kind of things that he's posting. And lo and behold, he's got a Facebook, and like we're 130% sure it's him. It wasn't just someone with his same name. And we're kind of going down, and like within one of the first 5 things on his wall, on his profile, and he also didn't have it, hidden. This was out there for the public to see. I wasn't even friends with him, and he's got a couple curse words. And I'll just tell you my personal opinion on it. If someone shares a meme or something, like an image that had a little curse word on it, I think that can kind of be forgiven. Like that's where I'm like, all right, gray area. But then right below that were something that came 100%, out of his mouth / fingertips in terms of typing. And it was like so inappropriate. And so to me, like appalling what he said about someone else. And it got political too. It was just like, whoa. And right then and there, I showed it to the rest of our leadership team, and we just said, done. That's one of our rules. If someone curses during an interview or during the entire process, or if we even see them out there cursing on social media, it's an automatic no-go. And one of the reasons why is because these people representing us, we have a lot of people who would not like to see us succeed. We have a lot of people because we're Christians or because whatever it is that just don't want us to succeed. Anytime you're putting a lot of good out there and you're putting wholesome stuff out there and you're making a difference, there are always going to be some forces, evil forces, just people in general that want to see you screw up, slip up, and fail. And the last thing that we need is someone representing us and our company out there cursing and saying negative stuff on social media. Because if they're putting that kind of stuff on their personal page for everyone else to see, I can only imagine the kind of conversations that are happening, in real life with their friends, or what the public's hearing, or what kids are hearing, in earshot of them. And so that's just one more example. And I'm willing to bet, this kid has either had some experience as a youngster with cursing, or just around friends now who act and talk like that. And because of it, he just lost his dream job. I mean, no questions asked, didn't even give him a second chance. Like this, it's just one of our rules. It always has been. And 100% of the time, it's served us well. 100% of the time. There was one time that we were about to go against it, and shortly after we found out something about this person, we're like, man, thank goodness that litmus test we have is really, really, really spot on. So I just wanted to share that with you. Be super, super sensitive to what's coming out of your mouth when your kids are around. And like I said, if you don't have kids, nieces, nephews, just around kids in general, be really, really, really careful. They are listening to every single word we say, and they're copying us because they look up to us. They want to emulate us. They want to be us, right? I mean, just look, remember back in your childhood, think of it, maybe it's your mom or your dad or your grandfather, just some other figure who was important in your life and you wanted to be them. And it could have even been like an action hero. G.I. Joe. It could have been something on TV or in a movie, and you wanted to be everything that they were. You wanted to be just like them. You wanted to dress like them. You wanted to talk like them. You wanted to have the same little funny things that they said. I mean, can you imagine if we had, cartoons that just sat there and cursed and belittled people all day long? Every one of these kids would be copying that. They are going to copy what we say, and it will impact them as young adults and as adults as they get into relationships. So we can't control everything our kids do, especially as they get older. But this is one way that we can have a positive influence on them, whether they know it or not. It's almost like that subconscious piece where we're just like me praying over Jackson every night, thinking he's not hearing a word. And all of a sudden I realize, boom, this kid's listening to every single word I say. Because I didn't even remember that I was saying, dear God, every time until I thought about it. So these kids are listening to every single thing we say. Let's set them up for success. Hope you enjoyed that one. I got many more big things coming. I got some really cool stuff on Benjamin Franklin, one of my favorites. So I'll be doing a little, a fun little thing with you guys on that. And I'd love your feedback. Joe@saltstrong.com, Joe@saltstrong.com. I would love to hear what you think about Unchurched, any other topics you want to hear, or just anything that might have impacted you. Love you guys. I'm out. Peace.
'Cause fishing